I'm sure you know people who have a gift for attention to detail. And then there's others who have their thinking navigate through these grand, sweeping, overarching concepts of life. We actually see instruction in the Bible on both of those. When the Bible deals with, let's say, sin, it'll go into more detail that we should fight and stand firm and pray, lead us not into temptation, and flee from sin. And it'll give us some detailed instruction on how to overcome sin. But in the book of Colossians, in chapter 1, verses 13 and 14, in a prayer that Paul is praying for that church, he drops these verses that are big picture. Chapter 1, verses 13 and 14. Let me read them to see if you understand what I'm talking about. Chapter 1, verses 13 and 14. He has delivered us from the domain of darkness and transferred us to the kingdom of his beloved Son, in whom we have redemption, the forgiveness of sins. Of course, there's so much to say about this verse, but what I want to point out in our time is the two kingdoms that are being presented here. A kingdom of darkness contrasted with the kingdom of God's Son, and the corresponding transfer of lives in these two kingdoms. That is, for the Christian, the life before they were a Christian, and the life now that they are a Christian. You know, there's a lot that's talked about in the Christian life that you should be excited and that you should be joyful. And I think that is good instruction. But it's not always the case. And we have to be careful because people express joy and excitement in different ways. But I do like what one pastor said. He said it's not so much about stimulation, but transformation. The first one, the excitement, we can all work on and rework on and practice and get better. The second one, we have to have, or we're not Christians. So for the Christian, there's been a great transfer, all of grace, from one kingdom into another. Have you ever heard someone say, when you're talking to them, sharing with them, oh, I'm not very religious, but it's good for you. Usually that follows. And what people don't realize is that everyone is religious by default. We are born religious. We just tend not to frame it that way. We all come into this world and we have ideas and convictions and beliefs about many different things. What's valuable, what is of real worth, lasting worth. We have ideas about wealth and possessions and their place in our lives. We're all seeking a sense of well-being, happiness. Every person has a system of how they view reality, and they operate according to those ideas. A system of thought that they make decisions and they live their lives by that. And that is their religion. Put another way, that is the kingdom that they operate in. And the Bible's instruction is either you acknowledge the king of the kingdom of God, or, like I said, by default, you're building your own kingdom, whether you know it or not. Against popular opinion, we Christians, we really don't think that we're better than non-Christians. We just think we have a better king. We just think that there is only one true king. Now, I know that can sound narrow to some ears, but the real question isn't, is that a narrow statement? The real question is it true? So when we see family and friends and they don't believe like we believe, then we can ask them, okay, if you don't believe that there is one king, what is your view on the world? You get the opportunity to answer the big questions in life, like what do you do with your sin? Or what do you do with your guilt? Who gets to say what's right and wrong? How do you decide that? When you see an incredible sight in nature, like a sunset or a vast ocean, or like I saw the Swiss Alps, incredible. How do you explain their existence? Of course, the popular thing is the Big Bang. And even if we were to grant that, which we don't, but even if we did, we'd say, where did the gases come from? I've never heard a good answer to that. Everyone has the burden, and I think they have a need. They have a burden to be able to give an answer that comports with the reality that we all live in and move and have our being. In our verse, there's two kingdoms. The kingdom where men and women appoint themselves as sovereign. The verse calls that kingdom is of darkness. And the other kingdom is where God is sovereign. The kingdom that men and women build in our day usually goes something like this. Be true to yourself. Be genuine. Be authentic. Be who you are. Don't let anyone tell you who you are. You be who you are. And the second's like it. When it all boils down, you know, when all is said and done, be happy. Make yourself happy. You know, even if your pursuit of well-being infringes upon another one's pursuit of well-being, it's a lot easier to dismiss when you're sovereign in that kingdom. The kingdom where you appoint yourself king, even if you're unaware, you know, there's so much less guilt in that kingdom because you get to decide what you're going to feel guilty for or not. You get to decide what is right and what is wrong. You get to decide what is valuable. You get to create your own moral structure. When you offend someone, you can give your own pardon. There is an easier sense, an easier way to operate in a kingdom like that. Of course, it has its drawbacks. You have to create a system of your own comfort. Where is that going to come from? Usually, self-built kingdoms crumble. They usually do. I don't mind it. But even if they don't crumble, or even if they have a little bit of crumbling, you know, the Bible speaks to that also. Say a person builds their kingdom and they're doing pretty good. Maybe they have a lot of material wealth or status or whatever that might be. And the Bible tells a story of someone that was successful and had great material possessions. And it goes on to say, what if you gain the whole world? What if you gain the whole world and yet lose your soul? No matter what kind of kingdom you build, it won't extend on to eternity before God. But many, if not most of you that are listening, if not even all of you, have jettisoned any belief apart from Christ being the King of the kingdom. I want you to be reminded that that old person, that old kingdom, the old ways apart from Christ is dead. Even though it doesn't seem like it sometimes. The Bible teaches that old life has been crucified with Christ, and now Christ lives in you. And aren't you glad for that? That old life is no more, and neither is the guilt and the penalty that went with it. To be united to Christ is to have his life in you. And one thing that means is God is no longer your enemy, but now you are his son and his daughter. It also means that once transferred from that old kingdom into the new kingdom, all your affections and all your desires are different. What's important to you is different. What's valuable to you is different. How you pursue well-being, all different. And the verse closes with the source of all this. We have redemption in him. He delivered himself up for you. He didn't come just to be a great prophet or teacher. He came to die for you. So remember that. It can take a lifetime, maybe a whole eternity, to wrap ourselves around that. Be encouraged. The elders and deacons are still available during this time. So if you need something to shoot us. If you need something, shoot us an email or a text or a call. And I'll leave you with this challenge. I'm going to challenge you to read chapter 1 of Colossians and reread it. See what it's really trying to say. And second, if you're not reading anything apart from reading the Bible, I want to recommend a little book on the Christian life by John Calvin, which talks about a call to Christian living, self-denial, bearing our cross, meditation on the future life, and how present comforts in this life should be used. Not very expensive. Pick it up. It's not a long book. It's a little book. So if you've read it before, read it again. And may the Lord keep you strong